that we are first having the meeting live streamed. So councillors and staff, speak into a microphone when you're on, when you're speaking, please. And a reminder to the audience that councillors are on their iPads looking at their electric digital agendas. Come on. All right. So we have apologies from councillors, Councillor Lawson and Tanya Eden. Any other councillors? Apologies, sir.
Yes, I need to leave early today. I'll be gone in about an hour.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll move those apologies. Seconded by Councillor Redstone. All those in favour, key my eye. Aye. Any against? Carried. Kia ora. Conflicts of interest. If there are any conflicts, we'll deal with them the normal way. At the point of the agenda, just let us know. Okay. We have the minutes from the 4th of May 2021 to confirm. Moved by Councillor Watkins, seconded by Councillor Travers. All those in favour, key my eye. Carried. Kia ora. So, just before we go into it, any leave of absence? Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. All right. So down to item 4. Chairperson's update. I'll take my report as read, but just to highlight a couple of things. Firstly, that Strategy and Policy Committee, I guess our guiding strategy for this particular committee and also the council is our long-term plan. And that was signed off back in 24th of June, as well as the Development Contributions Policy, which is really significant. And we have spoken about this in council meetings, but just wanted to note that again. And we also set our rating for that plan and for the council at I think we set it at less than 7%, and so we were able to achieve that. So our LTP, not so much for this and for the information of councillors, but really for the whānau that are tuning in here. Basically describes all the activities and community outcomes that we aim to achieve. So it's what we want to, our aspirations, what we want to achieve with the community. And it's a long-term focus. And to help us to do that work, we have this committee, but we also have our subcommittees. And I just wanted to note that also, because they are very important to how we function as a council and how we complete what is in the LTP. There's so many work streams and so many outcomes that we're trying to achieve. We couldn't do that without our subcommittee, so I just want to acknowledge our subcommittee chairs and their committees, which are all here today. So district development, eco districts, great communities, and district planning and bylaws. And there will be an opportunity for the chairs to give an update to the committee on their mahi, what they're doing now, and their plans for the future. So yeah, just to make that or to make those acknowledgements. But there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment. We are, as a council and as councils around the motu, engaged in some major reforms, and I'll just highlight the government's Three Waters reform that is happening right now, and will be something that we as a council will be considering as information comes to the table. But we also have huge growth in Hastings, population, economic growth, and so being able to provide that infrastructure is going to be a challenge, but something we're up for, and something that our committees and subcommittees are dealing with right now. Climate change is also a big challenge, and that came through clearly in our LTP submissions from the community. And so again, another big issue, and also the ongoing consequences of COVID-19. So, so that's basically an outline of my report. And then the agenda today, we have got quite a full-on agenda, looking at the Tomato Peak Corridor Management Plan, which is an important development, especially with the numbers that are heading up onto the peak daily and projected to be a lot more. We are going to introduce, I guess, our spatial plan and what we are aiming to achieve with the spatial plan. And then we have some overviews from our subcommittees. And we will also be talking about the Taongoio Coastal Hazard Strategy and where we're up to with that. So, koira taku whakarapapototanga mo tēnei wā, I guess the summary of the meeting going into it. So, we've got a question here from Councillor Kerr. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I say an outstanding, well-written Chairman's report. I'm loving the way the 4 subcommittees are working. I wasn't sure at the beginning how it was going to coordinate and work through, and I think today's report is evidence of that bottom up working really, really well. So compliments to you and your team for achieving this. One quick question, and it's possibly to Mr. Thu, is 1.5, Waka Kotahi has released its indicative funding program. When will we have a more firm idea around their funding match, given that we had to create our LTP before they released their information?
Through you, Chair, we are waiting and we should receive sometime during August the capital, the enhancement funding stream, which is the funding that goes towards road safety, improvements to cycleways and all those other elements. Once we've got that landing, then the team can look at what the total picture looks like and report back to Council on its choices and officer recommendations for you to consider.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Dixon, yeah.
Yeah, I've already written it down.
Okay.
What was the quantum of the gap? That's already asked that question. More than happy to see it.
All right, cool. We have a mover and a seconder for the Chair's update. All those in, I'll put it, all those in favour, key my eye. Aye. Any against? Carried. Just before we get into the next agenda item, I just want to acknowledge Louise. So Louise is our new governance and democracy manager, taking over from where Jackie left off. So, mihi nei kia koe, Louise. Kia kaha tō mahi. Kia ora. Ka poe. So, item 5, brief report on the spatial plan. And Rowan, you're going to... Rowan and Raul.
Kia ora, everyone. Yes, I'd just like to present to you the paper on the spatial plan following the workshop that we had last week. And I'd ask that the paper just be taken as read, just to let you know also that there's very important discussion going on at the moment amongst mana whenua about how their engagement in this spatial plan as partners will work, and that will have to come back to you at some stage, but it's quite a large conversation that needs to happen, and that is ongoing. But I just ask that that you endorse the spatial plan in collaboration with its partners to commence. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Corbyn.
Thank you, Chair. Rowan, I noticed the timeline for the spatial plan is getting shifted out. and I can understand the reasons for that. My concern is the fertile soils and how we're going to protect them in the meantime.
Certainly. So in the meantime, the Hiratonga Plains Urban Development Strategy is in place, and that guides the future growth. And we're confident at the stage that there is sufficient land identified for future greenfields growth in the Hiratonga Plains Urban Development Strategy. And by the time that we're getting to the end of those identified areas, the spatial plan should be well and truly in place.
So there'll be no need for rezoning of land for residential or industrial until the spatial plan is completed?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the areas that have been identified in the growth strategy.
You're talking about reserve areas?
No, I'm talking about the actual prioritised greenfield areas. So we have Lyndhurst Extension, we have Kaiapo Road, Hiratonga Tamatea Settlement Trust's land at Irongate, York, and then Copeland. So those are all priority areas in the Hiratonga Plains Urban Development Strategy, and they may be needed, while we're in the process of developing the spatial plan.
So just to be clear, there'll be no rezoning of areas that aren't already identified?
Through you, Chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at recommendation B, regional spatial plan in collaboration with our partners. How are we going to decide who our partners are going to be?
Yes, through you, Chair. The starting point for us is firstly the direction that you set at the start of the year. So obviously we are looking to take an approach to producing the regional spatial plan that isn't just growth focused, that takes a holistic for wellbeing's approach. You've set us a direction that says, and ideally this is a spatial plan that when it's adopted, it can be implementable, fundable and integrate other key funding streams outside of our long-term plan. So clearly we're working on the basis that some of our critical partners to this are the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, Waka Kotahi, and we have already had commitments from both of those organisations' chief executives to be involved in the regional spatial planning process. There is a question that we need to tease out through the next phase when we bring back to you about how far does this extend into the likes of the District Health Board and the Ministry of Education, but clearly we're looking to have partners that go to one, regional, and two, a for wellbeing's approach in terms of their involvement in their funding streams.
Thank you.
Councillor Sears.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up on Councillor Corbyn's comments, I'm not sure that was clear around priority or reserve land.
That was around through you, Chair, that was around the priority land. The reserve land, I don't think we will need that. I also should make it clear in terms of industrial land, we can't be certain about whether we will need further industrial land given the rate of uptake that is happening. So we can't be certain about that either, but we'll be monitoring that very carefully.
And just clarification, say you have some options that are priority options, but they don't work through. As an example, you can't get the landowners. Then at that stage, you will need to consider your reserve areas. So those are all things that we're going to work our way through, but we just don't know. We may have somebody who, a particular landowner, one of the options just says no, or for whatever reason. So you just got to be aware that could happen. Yeah. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, just a follow-up question. Well, I'm just reiterating my concerns also, the length of time the spatial plan takes, given that we still don't have a supply and demand population study completed and the pressures on industrial, that I think there's a huge vulnerable area between the HPUD's opportunities and what we may decide in the spatial plan around protection of our fertile soils. And I'm not convinced that that they are satisfactory, given that what we agreed to in HPUDs now could be something that we wish not to pursue. So I think it would be good that we hear back as we get closer to what the parameters might be around the spatial plan as to how that gap might be able to be closed.
Yeah, and if I can, just through you, Chair, I think the point that's being raised is that what we currently do have is our planning framework, our existing planning framework that has been consulted on is HPUDs. You know, it designates out the areas for growth, both residential and industrial, priority and reserve areas. I think what the team's saying is that as things stand at the moment, and clearly, you know, there's a whole lot of things that we're currently working on that we're required to under national policy statements around, you know, our housing assessments, our industrial land assessment, that we're confident that, more confident in the residential area, that we have, you know, the scope within what's designated for residential growth. It is a little bit more uncertain in the industrial area, but I guess the key points are, you know, that we follow the plan and make decisions in line with that plan, and all of that has to come back through the places that make the decision, which is not officers, it's councillors.
Through you, Chair, and Mark and his team have been doing this housing and business assessment report. Well, the housing report is soon to be finished, so that will give us a much better idea of the level of demand and supply, and then he'll be launching onto the industrial business one following the completion of this one. So again, the information base is being built, so that will be, and Mark, you may want to comment further on that.
Just making the comment that with these sorts of things, and we know things change, it's hard to be categoric. So we're talking about a degree of confidence pending some fairly significant pieces of work coming, and they're going to come to you within the next month or two. So you know, there's a lot of caveats, if you like. We can't be categoric. We can't be categoric of what you might decide about a current plan. And the levels of growth and immigration, all those sorts of things. So we've just got to bring you the best information we can. It's on its way. But at first blush, at least, we think you've got enough in the tank with your existing plan to get you through a new spatial plan and get down the implementation pathway for anything new that comes out of that, at least in respect to residential. But with respect to industrial, we're a little bit less sure, but we have worked about to be commissioned to relook at that. Okay.
Yeah, so HPUDs is a document that will be, and we have been, existing plan, yeah, up until the time we adopt something else. Boy.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to think that this committee would have quarterly reporting at Stratton Policy with all of the residential and industrial uptake, so we can clearly plan and understand exactly where we're placed and how we are tracking, and then we can make some informed decisions with that information as it comes. So we have a standard item in this paper in the Stratton Policy every quarter of how we're tracking, and over the next 2-year period while we're undertaking the spatial plan. If we need to look at other, particularly around industrial, then we need to get on and do that. So thank you. I'd like to add that as a recommendation.
Yep, we can add that to the recommendations. Recommendation D. You are? Yep. Councillor Corbyn.
My question follows on from the Mayor's. Given the uncertainty around industrial land availability, is there opportunity to look at options outside of what's already in HPUDs, so that we don't encroach on any more fertile land should the occasion arise?
Yeah, short answer is yes, because that will need to inform basically considerations through the spatial plan.
So if we are looking at that from now on, that would be included in the quarterly report as well. Yep. Thank you.
no, we can tie that into the quarterly update report on our housing growth. So we will, any other questions or comments? Oh, you, John?
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. The only other avenue that we may strike is people who may promote their own private plan change. So what I mean by that is there are some owners of areas identified in the growth areas, and they may come to council for consideration for a private plan change. So that's the only other route that more land could come to the market. Okay, thank you.
So we'll just wait for these amended recommendations to be put up on the screen. Just to advise, we'll be having a cup of tea at 2:30. 2:29. Okay, I'll read it out. We've added in D. The committee directs the chief executive to report quarterly on residential, commercial and industrial land uptakes and the progress of the development of the spatial plan. We're good with that? Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, Wendy? Oh, sorry.
If you don't already have a mover and in lieu of her worship, I'm happy to move that.
Cool. Have a mover, need a seconder. Worship, seconded by worship. Oh, do you have a...
It actually doesn't cover off the availability of alternatives for industrial land. Progress on availability of alternatives.
Industrial land. And
for industrial land.
Yep.
It tells us whether it's running out, but it doesn't tell us what Plan B is.
So as I guess through you, Chair, the question is about how specific we get. Clearly the development of a spatial plan is going to have to identify, a range of ways of thinking about land use, whether it's industrial or residential. So it's whether you, are comfortable that in the reporting to you quarterly, or you want to get into that granular level of detail about.
Well, I really just want confidence that if we do get squeezed on an urgency for industrial land, that we have got Plan B in place that isn't encroaching on the fertile soils.
So through you, Chair, I mean, we've already got an action from council arising out of the recent retreat where we were focused on growth to start work around looking at, in advance of the potential pinch points on industrial alternative land supply for industry, which, I would expect to, one, be reporting back to you and certainly including in quarterly updates on the development of the spatial plan and reporting on industrial land uptakes.
If it's going to be reported in point D, I'd be happy with that.
Well, I'm very clear around what reporting to you on the development of the spatial plan would need to cover, and that includes work on alternative land supplies for industry.
Just for clarification, Mark's second piece of work, the business industrial land, they'll come back to council indicating, what quantity we want, and that'll give us a clear indication of what we may need to do or not do. Okay, that's probably going to be well in advance of the spatial plan now. Okay,
Councillor Sholem.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, possibly to set minds at ease, I see one of the most important roles of district development being to informally stay on top of this as well. So as well as formal reporting coming through to this committee, we will certainly be regularly meeting and asking for updates on this, which should hopefully give us ample opportunity to stay abreast of needs and dig in deeper if required.
Kia ora. So we have a mover and a seconder. I'll put the recommendations up there on the screen. All those in favour to those recommendations, ki mai ai. Aye. Any against? Kia ora. Motion carried. Ka wai. All right. Item 6, Clifton to Tāngoi or coastal hazards. Summary notes. Mark, you talking to this? Kia ora.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to say that this paper should be taken as read. It's just introducing a summary report from the last joint committee of the Coastal Hazards Committee, and introducing the minutes. Just a formality. You did have a report from Bruce Allen a couple of meetings ago on the more substantive item that came out of that committee, as this report foreshadows, there was the final reporting up to the Regional Council's full committee from its committees and to Napier City Council on the same matter. The Napier City Council won't be considering it until the 5th of August, but the Hawke's Bay Regional Council considered this on the 28th. And so I can report to you that they endorsed the recommendations in principle, but added a few other matters concerning risk and liability and their organisational structure, because, as you will appreciate, if they to take the lead on this and over the long term, it's a big job, and that will have quite a lot of consequential implications for them in terms of their organisation. So there's an extra couple of recommendations that we'll put up as part of that. I won't go through those, but if Council's interested, I have a copy and I can show you.
Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We're advised that on our Northern Cell visit on Friday that the Regional Council had actually accepted those recommendations, so I'm more than happy to move the report. Thank you.
Ms. Redstone, you want a second?
Happy to second, also to comment if it's okay. Just the Cape East Road corner wall is pretty much complete and looks fantastic, so that's been a big job, well done. Yeah, thank you.
I was out at Home One this morning actually, and
Super.
checking the ways at Te Wanga, but I came past nothing at TA, went to Home One, and there's a big rock wall right there, so it was looking pretty good. So we have a mover and a seconder for this report, and I'll put that. All those in favour of the report, ki mai ai. Any against? Ka pai, carried. Kia ora ra. Right, item number 7, a report on the activity from the District Development Subcommittee, and I'll hand the time over to that subcommittee chair, Councillor Sholem. Kia ora.
Thank you, Chair. And just would like to acknowledge the work of officers who have been working alongside our subcommittee. It's been much appreciated and has led to some really great meetings. So most recently, District Development, which for the benefit of those who may be viewing at home, has oversight of the implementation of Council's housing development, transport development, economic development, urban zone development, city revitalisation and central business districts developments, certainly with land supply as well, has been meeting somewhat more informally, which is the role of the subcommittee, allowing more formal items to be pushed to strategy and policy with a recommendation. The most recent example of that is the Tamata Peak Access Corridor Management Plan, which the subcommittee met, discussed and has made a recommendation to this committee regarding. Activities recently have been working alongside the Great Communities Subcommittee to stay abreast of the Camberley Master Plan, which is ongoing. Also ongoing is the introduction of a program of skills training and food processing, also looking at Flaxmere land development progress, land acquisition and disposal, and transport team updates. So at this stage, the model of the subcommittee is for elected members to be informed of what's happening at an early stage and participate in conversation, and then formally receive information to be fed up to this committee.
Thank you for that. Councillor Kerr, do you have a comment, question?
Mayor Sanders was before me.
That's all right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Your worship, take it first.
Through you, Chair, can I just acknowledge all the work that's going on in this subcommittee, but all subcommittees, and acknowledge the chair. I really enjoyed attending these subcommittees and fleshing out the depth in which we are working with as a council with the community. I'm just interested also in the introductory program of skills training and food processing pilot and the planning phase. So who is our partner with that particular piece of work and the delivery of the pilot program?
Build it.
Through you, Chair. So I'd just like to reply to that question from your worship. We've been working for probably the last 8 months with MSD, MB and a contractor to deliver this piece of work. There are now 5 businesses who are ready to take graduates of this program, and the contractor is going to kick off the program in mid-August. So currently it's with MSD funding to deliver, and the 5 businesses will take the graduates, which is looking like about 10 people at this stage.
So the graduates have come from?
The candidates who will go through the training program that starts in middle August are all MSD clients.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's awesome work.
Councillor Kerr.
Just would like to repeat what Mayor Sanders said. Lots of work. Well done to the team of District Development, and I'd like to move the report.
Thank you. So we have a mover to the report, seconded by Councillor Travers. I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, keep my eye. Any against? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Sholem and your team for the mahi. And then if we go to item 8, is what you mentioned earlier, Councillor, thank you, around the Tomato Peak corridor management plan, so we can move into that paper. So that's attached, councillors. Welcome, Maurice.
Thank you, Chair. I take the report as read, but just a few comments. The need for this corridor management plan is to set the strategic vision for this corridor. We have a lot of conflicting needs and specifically on Tamara Peak, where you've got a lot of active users mixing with traffic on that road going up to the summit, and also looking at different strategies that can be implemented at different times as the need arises. And this corridor management plan has done a lot of engineering assessment and recommends a whole bunch of different tools that we can use as and when required to deal with some of those issues. Thank you, Chair. Are there any questions?
Any questions on the corridor management plan? I think there is. So, here we go. Councillor Sholem and Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Chair. Given District Development deep dived into this and was satisfied, made suggestions to the recommendations, and these have come through, I'm very happy to move the recommendations.
Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Chair. Just also to report the Tomato Peak Trust Board are also very happy with the progress and what the contents of the plan and the consultation process that's taken place to date, and more than happy to second. Thank you.
Kia ora. So we have a mover and a seconder. I'll put that. All those in favour, keep my eye. Aye. Any against? Carried. Kia ora. Thank you, Marius.
Thank you.
Me. Ahoy. Item 9, report on the activity from the Eco District Subcommittee. I'll pass the time over to that subcommittee chair, Councillor Redstone. Kia ora.
Thank you, Chair. So we've first of all, I'd like to thank the officers and staff for the support, and in particular Louise, who we're very sorry to lose. She's done a lot of very hard work on our strategy, which at this point still isn't complete. We haven't signed off. We've had two informal subcommittee meetings since my last report, and the last one was particularly robust discussion, really good actually, and we decided at that discussion that we needed to get this absolutely right. Even though it's a living document, there are some sort of variables coming in on it that we hadn't considered until the last informal. So we're very close, and we'll hope to be able to sign it off on the 17th, but if not, we're not panicking, because as I say, we'd like to get it completely right. So just for those out there listening, mana whenua partnerships are an overarching principle of the document. The 4 priority areas of focus are water and land resources are used wisely, a better climate and carbon future, the natural environment is enhanced and protected, and council services are green and healthy. So as I say, we have a little bit more work to do on the detail. Some of our priorities are waste minimisation and management plan. We have discussed the fact that waste minimisation is quite a big part of what we're doing. A copy of the Hastings medium density housing strategy was shared with the subcommittee, and the chair, myself and Sophie, went to a workshop facilitated by the risk and assurance team on the topic of climate change adaptation. So key aspects of this workshop were presented back to the subcommittee, and this work's ongoing. So I think that's probably where we are at the moment, and as I say, hopefully getting close to actually signing off the strategy. Have you got anything to add, Sophie, or no? And I think Craig might have a little thing to add.
Through you, Chair, I think Councillor Redstone has covered most of the work. Probably the key piece under next step is Louise and the team are just trying to finalise a date for Regional Council workshop with Council around what Regional Council have been doing in the climate change space, because there's a lot of opportunities to make sure, A, we don't climb over each other, but also find the complementary work and some ability for us to leverage. Also just wanted to give you an update just as a flag, and we'll come back to you more. Another key part of the Eco District Committee is working through and signing off on the reserve management plans. Currently we have 3 big plans out working through a development process, and Focal have been doing a lot of community engagement. The ecological studies are almost in. I do need to flag though that we have run into some delays that need a little bit more work around the cultural assessments. One around capacity in particular of our partner at the Tai Whenua Hariri side, around to them to move forward on the ESC assessment. But also I was at a session just yesterday, just talking with the team, and there's a bit more work that our advisors need to do, in particular working through the descendants of the Karanema block, just to make sure that the assessment we receive is robust and is giving due effect to some quite in-depth issues there. So Rachel and the team are just working through around how we move forward on this, because we also don't want to sit too long, but it may be that just we can release some of the information, but our view is we shouldn't move too far ahead until we get that cultural assessment work completed. So we'll just keep you advised on those timeframes.
Thank you, Craig. Through you, Chair, I'd like to move the recommendations. Just before I do, I'd like to also ask that we have an environment consideration at the end of each of our papers, just in light of the work we're doing. Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair, we've already taken that as an action, and we'll move to include that in all the council papers. Some of it might be just for a period of time, you know, the best judgment of officers whilst we actually develop, you know, that out a wee bit in terms of some criteria and metrics for, you know, giving that advice, but we'll move to do that quite quickly.
No, good to see in the report that Hui has been playing with the Regional Council, who have a mandate around environmental stuff for the region. Yeah, no, good. So we have a mover, Councillor Redstone, seconder, Councillor Sears. I'll put that, all those in favour, of this report being received, ki mai ai. Any against? Motion carried. Kia ora tata. Thank you, Councillor Redstone and your team for your mahi. Item number 10, report on activity from the District Planning and Bylaws Subcommittee. Hand the time over to the chair of that subcommittee, Councillor Watkins. Kia ora.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Chair. Councillors, in front of you, you've got the work program update. You'll all be very familiar with all the items in that update. They have been canvassed at previous meetings. There just are four in particular I would like to draw attention to. The plan changes around the protection to Tamata Rongokoko. Hopefully at our meeting on the 25th of August, we'll get very close to making a final decision. There is still discussion to be had that will take place on the 25th, but I hope at the end of that meeting we can draw this particular item to a very good conclusion. The Residential Intensification Design Guide, which we all saw, it was a fantastic document that was produced by our team, very well received here in our local community, but I understand Gisborne have also now taken hold of that design guide and they are using it. So I think that's a real compliment to our staff. Well done. The Marae plan change, which really was a little bit of an anomaly that happened, that has gone through its submission process. It's gone through the appeal process. My understanding is that there were no appeals. So that will come back to council probably at the next meeting and it will be confirmed and that will be set in the plan. So I think that's very good because there was an anomaly there and we've got it sorted. One new item of interest is the Heritage Nomination Project. I think you're all aware that, you know, in the CBD and in the centre of the city, we're very strong on heritage buildings. This project tends to cast the net wider and identify other heritage buildings, items, articles of interest that we should put some protection around. So this will be a very interesting project to follow. I think that's all I'm happy to report on, Mr. Chair. Take any questions. If there's no questions, I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Just in terms of the plan change around Te Mata Rongokako, Te Mata o Rongokako. So we went out on, some of us went out on the bit of a hikoi field trip to have a look at the that prohibition line. It was a bit, and you remember it was pretty foggy that day. It was actually, I could barely see from me to you. So we're here looking, you know, trying to picture where everything's kind of sitting on the landscape. And the fog was just so thick. But anyway, Mare was there, myself, and anyone else? But we were able to walk over with the landowners and you know, they were able to point out where they were looking to build. But I think, yeah, so the take is going back to the Heretanga Takatonoa meeting this month?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct,
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I think that was the recommendation from the walk around was that day.
Just on that point, on the 25th, which is this month, the Planning and Bylaws meeting is before Heretanga Takatonoa, so we need to reverse the order of those.
Well, we are seeing if we can actually reinstate our meeting later in the day after the decision has been made by your committee.
Sorry, what was that?
We're going to reschedule the meeting to make it for after the Heretanga Takatonoa standing committee.
Okay, so we'll have a
So
split
we just
meeting.
get the horse before the cart.
And by the way, there were 2 field trips out there and it was foggy on both of them.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
No, sorry to correct you, there was 3, not many turned up the first one.
That took a while to trying to nail those down. I think the weather was, one of them was a shocker. We had all that rain and stuff. Okay, so thank you, Councillor Watkins, for your report. Oh, yeah, Your Worship.
Through you, Chair, thank you for your report, Councillor Watkins. I have been contacted by the community about this area, and I think it's really important that we just share with our community the process that council goes through to manage this, and I think that we do need to have some information put out there to the community about what is going on there. Because somebody contacted me, was it going to be a regional park, or, you know, what is happening, what does the plan change mean? Okay. So I think that's really important that we capture some of that for the community and just tell them what this actually means. Thank you. Kia ora.
Cool. We can take that on board.
Yes,
as an action.
Thank you,
Yep.
Chair.
Well, there's no other questions. We have a mover for the report. Can I get a second, Councillor Travers? All those in favour, ki mai ai. Any against? Kia ora, carried. Thank you, Councillor, and your team for your mahi. Okay. Item number 11. Report from the Greater Community Subcommittee. I know the chair of that subcommittee is an apology. So who's doing that report on her behalf? Huh? Damon?
Yeah, thank you. I'll do my best. It was a little bit short notice. I'll take both the report 11 and 12 as read, and also the strategy overview, which is significantly comprehensive with a lot of actions. It's been a massive piece of work, actually, to be honest. There's a heap there, and there's a lot of stuff that just, from a prioritisation as well. But as the greater community makes the place look great, and it makes people great. So that's the emphasis there, and there have been some significant milestones, including the rollout of the Mahi for Youth Caravan in Camberley, which was launched a while back, plus also the new basketball courts for Flaxmere, which have had incredible participation or use since they were installed. So that was fantastic. There's been 3-on-3 competitions and the like being held on those. So that's fantastic. And also the Innovative Streets, that's been the program of work that's been going on in the CBD. And then it sort of dovetails into item 13, which is the work that Paula has been done with the library strategy. So again, that's been a big piece of work, and we will get to hear about that very shortly. And lastly, there is also the aquatic strategy that is ongoing with the fast looming construction at the sports park, which I'm not sure if you've been down there recently, but now the steel is pretty much up, and at some stage it'll be starting to be enclosed. So that's something that we've got our watch on, and the staff have held a meeting with their compatriots, isn't it? It's a correct word. In Napier. And to just make sure that what we are doing there is from a regional perspective as well. So that's where the aquatic strategy sits. Counterparts, sorry. So that's me. Thank you.
I could just add, Chair, that in addition to all the things that Councillor Harvey's covered off, I thought one of the really significant deliverables from our great communities work was the launch of the multicultural strategy. First one in the North Island, only second one nationally, and has been a significant amount of work led by the council with our multicultural community, and a really significant milestone in addition to everything else that Councillor Harvey's covered off.
just on that multicultural launch. That was on the Saturday, 14th? 24th, yeah. So that was in Toitoya. So what time does that happen? Late in the afternoon?
1 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. So at 6 o'clock in the Opera House, there was a huge kind of like it was a big concert put on by the Latter-day Saint Church, but it had Māori, it had Hamoa, Tongan, it had everything. So we should have just kind of lined that up a bit better, because we could have just come from one to the other and just had an explosion of culture. But it was fantastic. But just want to mihi to the greater communities subcommittee for the mahi that they're doing, and that this document here, the strategic overview, is it's a comprehensive piece of document strategy outlining the mahi. So ngā mihi kia koutou, Councillor Harvey and Councillor Travers. Yeah. So Lawson, sorry, who can't be here with us today. So we have a couple of questions. Your Worship.
Through you, Chair, and just to reiterate what the Chief Executive has just said about the multicultural strategy, and I'd like to acknowledge the people that have gone before us that started this work, this mahi, because it was, this has been a long time coming, and it started with us, but then it went wider to the community. The community now own it. And so I'd like to acknowledge the people that started this work. I'd also like to make sure that we have very strong reporting through ops and monitoring on how we're delivering on the strategy. And I think that there's one thing to be able to create a beautiful plan, but there's another thing to be able to make sure that we're actually doing the delivery. And so I just want to, I don't think I need to make a recommendation or anything, but I'm just conscious that we need to ensure that we understand, because it's not just our council that will deliver on the strategy, it will be the community as well. So just how that delivery will happen. And I just want to make sure that does happen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Corbyn.
I want to acknowledge the huge amount of work that's gone into these documents, and it does make Hastings a great place. I may have missed it, but I want to ask whether included is review of community plans, particularly rural and coastal communities. I'm aware of Whakatū, which is due for review this year. And there's community enhancement being done on a piecemeal basis rather than an integrated basis. And I'm sure there'll be other communities that are in a similar situation.
Through you, Chair. Yes, so the community plans, we do have quite a good document now on the hub, which is a live document that councils can go into, and they can see all the community plans, where they're up to, which councillors are assigned to them and which officers are assigned to them. So the idea is, because it fits in with the strategic overview, is that that's that living document that you can go in and see how the progress is happening with the community plans. Obviously, it's up to community to come to us and identify if they want a community plan, and then we work with them to frame that up and then to get some of those things delivered. But I think you'll find, and I can show you where that document is as well, and that will just keep you up to date as to where all the community plans are. Denise and her team are also working on what we're calling a community plan kite, which explains the processes as well, so we can use that as a vehicle to go to community with, so that they know how it works and how they can get a community plan established. And that will be coming to our next Great Communities Subcommittee meeting workshop in September.
Thank you very much.
Councillor,
just on the aquatic strategy, almost 3 weekends in a row at Waterworld in Flaxmere, the acreage there has been chocker with cars. We had the Hawke's Bay, Poverty Bay Regional Champs. I didn't know about that. I saw you there, Rebecca. It was absolutely jam-packed. I've never seen so many BMWs parked up in Flaxmere. And then again, there was this weekend as well. They were just chocker. I just think there's some opportunities there for the locals. You know, Kapai Kapawaka could rock up there, and you know, Pollyanna with their beautiful Pacifica food, they could rock up there. I call them the latte crowd, you know. But I also wonder what sort of an impact on that will the activity at the regional sports park have? You know, will that dilute it, or what's going to happen there? You may not have an answer, but I do wonder what's going to happen when that's completed there, and what's going to happen over here.
Through you, the Chair. Yes, we are obviously looking through all that, Councillor. We are engaging with a number of groups that currently use our pools and the group that are obviously building the pool out at the sports park. We're going through the process to understand exactly what space will be available at the new pool, to understand how it will impact on our business. So what business may potentially go from our pools to the pool at the sports park. But we're also, you know, that gives a lot of opportunities as well. You've spoken before about the community having more opportunities to use the pool space, so that could, you know, allow that to happen as well. So as part of that bigger picture, that aquatic strategy that we're looking at, that's looking at all those aspects and trying to understand the impacts that will have on our pools and the opportunities that will have for us as well.
We should sort of get the word out there that we can remove a few of their shekels, you know what I mean? Parking up there and make a few bucks in the process, for want of a better word. One other on the multicultural strategy, Baden's right. I wasn't aware of what was happening next door. So I had family members performing in it. And so it was chocker. Absolutely jam-packed. And I tell you what, the show, mate, it was worth the price of admission. It was stunning. So there's a, I don't know, lack of communication there somewhere, but it would have been great to bring it all together. It would have been fantastic.
Admission was free, by the way.
I got it for free.
Yeah. Just through you, Chair, do all the councillors get, the emails come out pretty regularly with the full schedule for what's on it? Toi toi.
Maybe the comms from the church's side didn't get out to the councillors.
Through you, Chair, Naomi might be able to give some more insight, but I know the marketing team are working on a system to integrate all our events across not only internally but externally as well.
We've got a couple of questions. Councillor Sholom, Councillor Travers and Councillor Ollie.
Just really wanted to acknowledge the work of Great Communities and very happy to move the recommendation.
Ms. Travers?
First of all, as one of the committee members, in fact, the multicultural policy came through the International Committee in the first instance, and then we were able to involve some community members. I would like to commend the work of Louise Steckner, actually, who had a job not unlike herding cats, rounding up people and keeping us to a good work schedule. But your comment about the concert immediately following brings to mind the fact there was just one other thing that we didn't include in the strategy, which I would like to see us deal with in future, and that is we're aware that amongst our various ethnic communities there are some significant dates and there are significant celebrations that happen on a yearly basis where all members of the community would be welcome to participate, visit, etc. And so one of the things we talked about was the production of a cultural calendar for the year, so that we could have things like language weeks, we could have things like international days, we could have things like White Sunday, events that the community would be welcome to attend, because actually that's how you break down barriers in society, is to open a window on the various cultures. So that's the direction we'd like to move in the future.
So just to, through you, Chair, in response to your comments there, Geraldine, just to update you on a piece of work that we're currently doing. There's a couple of strands to it, is that we have recognised that we get ad hoc approaches from various communities and organisations around things like celebrating international days through to causes, fundraising causes. And so there's a couple of strings to this. One is we're working with the communities team to develop a plan around acknowledging what are the significant events and cultural moments in our district that we should encourage and promote. So, for example, Samoan Language Week, Māori Language Week, so events in that area, Matariki, and then also looking at things like what are the significant issues for our district that we need to support, for example, suicide awareness and cancer. So what fundraisers will we support, and that can be reviewed on an annual basis. So it might be that we have a set that are acknowledged as of high importance and ones that we can cycle through so that we give diverse support. And we're also looking at that under a community events area. So at the moment we rely on people coming to us for support, and what we actually want to do is make sure that we are supporting at a wide range to ensure that value is across the diverse sector of the community. So we'll be pleased to bring that back to you for consideration and support.
Councillor. Thank you for your report, Damon, on the creative communities. My question is based off one of the survey reports that I was reading in our Flaxmere Skate Park group with the youth. That was a really cool experience. But I was a bit disappointed with the survey results. There was a large percentage of Māori engagement in the survey, but there was 1% in the Samoan report. So what my question is around inclusiveness with the community consultation process. Is there a possibility that you could have a translation of the survey when you put it out to the community, so it could be more understanding for all respective ethnic communities to know what's happening?
Yes, through you, the Chair. Yeah, that's a great idea, and I'll find out sort of how that consultation occurred, and certainly that's something we can look into in the future.
Thank you.
So we're still on item 11, and we've got a mover and a seconder to receive the report from the Greater Communities team. So I'll put that. All those in favour of the recommendation, key my eye. Any against? Carried. Kia ora, and thank you to the Greater Communities team. We're going to go on to item 12, even though Councillor Harvey mentioned the strategic overview. I'm just going to see if the staff wanted to elaborate on anything.
Through you, the Chair, I can take it as read, and Councillor Harvey has given an introduction, so happy to take any questions, any further questions.
Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to staff for your efforts in this area. I've read it, I've been involved in it. I think it's a fantastic strategy and very happy to move the recommendations.
Got a mover, Councillor Sholem, second to Councillor Harvey. I'll put that. All those in favour receiving that strategic overview, ki mai ai. Aye. Any against? Carried. Kia ora tātou. Yeah, what's that? Item 13, eh? 212, isn't it? Okay, so item 13, we've got a presentation around the Library Strategic Plan 2021 to 26, and hand the time over to Paula to give us the report. Welcome, Paula.
He Māori e koutou. Good afternoon, everyone.
I have to present the library strategic plan for 2021 through to 2026, a brief presentation to start with, which I think sets the scene for the rest of the strategy. Oh.
There is so much coming our way these days.
Sound.
So much information. Much coming. So much information. So many. So much coming our way these days. So much information. So many new developments. All asking for so many new skills. We need knowledge, we need jobs, we need time for ourselves and for each other. We need a place to find the resources to learn new skills, to get to know more about what we love, to improve and get ahead, to reach out to loved ones, and to make new friends. These places are already here, in over 300 locations across New Zealand, welcoming more than 37 million people each year. Places that fight unemployment, illiteracy, digital illiteracy, and loneliness. Places near us that connect people and nurture the skilled employees, creative learners, and cohesive communities New Zealand needs. Places we can't do without. Libraries change lives.
So I think that that video sets out quite nicely the fact that libraries sit at that nexus between community development, arts and culture, recreation and leisure, and formal and informal learning. So they're about providing infrastructure and spaces for all of those things to occur. And I just thought that was a really succinct way of illustrating that point quite visually. So the Hastings District Library Strategic Plan for the next 5 years. This is a major rewrite of the previous strategic plan, and it was based largely around a large piece of community engagement that was undertaken in 2019. There has been, as a result of that engagement, quite a significant amount of feedback about the Hastings Library in particular as showing its age. There were a lot of comments that library spaces were tired and out of date, and that the welcome into the facility is somewhat underwhelming. A lot of feedback too about the open spaces, meaning that noise is a constant source of tension for users of the facilities. And I guess I really wanted to kind of underscore that with stating that staff have long struggled to work around the building. That was built to serve the needs of library users in the late 1950s, so it's now in excess of 60 years old. I guess this strategic plan sets out that the fundamental message that library services cannot meet the needs of current and future users without some investment in the facility and its infrastructure. There is an action plan that accompanies the strategic plan, and it outlines both long and short-term investments and actions that can be undertaken. In terms of the building facility itself, in year 1, so this current financial year, we're proposing to research some solutions to meet future needs by doing some site visits,
And we'll be seeking budget through the annual plan to engage some design expertise. In year 2, we're looking at developing a concept plan to address those needs. And in year 3 and beyond, we're looking at detailed design. Obviously, budget will need to be sought and then implementation. That is a very short presentation on the strategic plan. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Kia ora. So thanks for that presentation on our library, which is a really important piece of infrastructure for the community. I'll bring in our questions, but I also want to bring in Nick from our rural community. Yeah, sorry, you're here from our rural community in terms of you know, libraries and our rural communities and you know, how do they connect? So I'll take you first, and then I'll pick up on the others.
Thanks, Baden. Yeah, have me nodding off there for a minute. I guess I'd like to ask Paula. Are libraries being more used or less used in this day and age?
Through you. So the use is changing significantly. So they are being well used, but they're also increasingly being used digitally or for activities other than simply book borrowing.
So I think as a rural perspective, if a rural person could use the library externally would be to their advantage. And keep it there and keep it modern with that kind of thing. That's what I can add.
I know, you know, from living in the rurals also, you know, the library is really important. It's like a big day out for our kids to go to the library. You know, we go in there and all these books and you know, computers and things. So yeah, I agree. I think it has been it is kind of looking a little bit tired. It's been well used though. I mean, geez, there's always people there. There's never short of people. But how do we deal with growth and just keep up with the, you know, with it looking good and feeling good? Cool. Thanks. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Paula. And sadly, I missed the presentation at Great Communities. I'm really, recently I have seen 2 libraries, one a $95 million library in Christchurch, which if anyone has the opportunity to see it, that is the Libraries of the Future, and it's and if, you know, that's the greatest thing that's come out of the Christchurch earthquake is the Christchurch Library, in my view. It is sensational. I couldn't believe seeing the activity and what was going on there. I could hardly get a space. It was so packed, and it was school holidays, but it was incredible. The other one I've seen is Martinborough, which is a tiny little rural town who's invested a lot of money in a library with a cafe and created a beautiful building. So 2 scales, one a big metro and one a little rural town. And I think that, you know, we have put our libraries pretty much on hold for my 10 years that I've been in council. We haven't given them, because there have been so many other priorities that we've had to consider. But it is time and to actually do a lot more. And I think about some of the land sales and our funding for Flagsmere. And while we did Havelock North, and I think Havelock North is well served, I think that Flagsmere, there is opportunity in that to get moving. We've got the funding, and we redirect some of it into the improvements of that whole community centre with the library. In terms of our city library, everyone has said it. Yes, it is tired, and yes, it hasn't been a priority for our council. So that brings me back to your timeline here. Well, actually, it's our timeline, and how we move forward. And I think that we need to be seriously considering some of this design, planning, detailed design and implementation in a different framework than what we have here. I think that we have listened. The patient people of the Friends of the Library have been lobbying us when I became the mayor in 2017. They wanted to see us invest in our library, and we've had to say that water was our number one, and we had to put it on hold. So my question to everybody here is, I think we need to clearly look at how we do this, where the funding comes from, and our officers to look at that. What is the next one? We've done Havelock, we haven't done Flaxby, and we haven't done the City Library. So, and see how do we make some more progress on upgrading our libraries, and how we put this into a major significant priority, because they're not going to be used less, they're going to be used more and more and more. And now with some of our vulnerable people are using the libraries in many, many different ways. And we have more of those vulnerable people now in our community. And so we need to seriously change how we go out to. It's not about going and have a look around. It's actually, we've had these people come in, these consultants. They've had a look at our library. Now we just have to put a different time frame around getting some implementation underway. So I applaud the strategy and the plan, but I think we need to carefully look at what those years 1, 2, 3 and 4 up to year 5, because it's 5 years is a long way away to get implementation underway. So I'll come back to a recommendation after I've heard some other speakers. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Sean.
Well, I'm quite excited following what Mayor Sandra's just said, because that echoes my thoughts exactly, and thank you, Your Worship, for raising it. Our libraries are a beating heart of our community, and just like Mayor Sandra said, they are being used more, and just like Paula said, in increasingly different ways. Gone are the days when you just went into a library to take out a book. You now go in there to have a Nerf war, or to have a meeting, or to learn something, or to use a computer. This is a much more diverse use. It's a community facility, it's a community hub. And so much of what's in the strategic plan will see it future-proofed, better use for our future. But I do think that 5 years is too far out. I too would like to see the timeline compressed, with full respect to the fact that staff are already pressed in all sorts of ways. I do see this as a huge priority. And I just would like to take an opportunity to acknowledge the huge amount of work that's just recently gone into the RFID retagging. So I think it was 220,000 items going through that process. And my kids love it. They love being able to go in and put their book on a shelf and know it's automatically checked back in. So thank you to the libraries team for all their work, and we need to prioritise these facilities.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paula. It's a great strategic plan. Really well done. And for everyone out there, literature is the key to learning. And the major part of that are our books and our libraries, because that's what has to supply it to a majority of our community. A question to me, about 5 years ago, we used to get the number of users in each of the libraries, the age range of the users, and the books that they were borrowed, the number of books that were borrowed. It'd be good to actually have that data now and make a comparison, if that's at all possible, on what's actually happening out there now in 2021 compared to 2018. Would that be possible?
I need to come back to you on that. I can't promise anything.
Okay, thank you. But it was always valuable information to just see, because I remember one stage there was more borrowers using the library in Flaxby than what was using the library in Havelock North. And that was quite surprising at that particular time. I just want to see how the patterns have changed. Thank you.
Councillor Travers.
I represent council on an external group who have meetings in the library during the evening, and the other people on that committee are from right across Hawke's Bay, and I'm very aware of the extent to which people who live in places other than Hastings are actually using the Hastings Library as their primary source of recreational reading. And I wondered whether events in other Hawke's Bay centres were actually having an effect on the workload and utilisation of our library. Have you been able to quantify that, or you have impressions around that?
Through you, Chair. Really, it's anecdotal evidence only that, you know, that we are receiving a number of people using the libraries who are perhaps native to other areas of the region.
Mr. Nixon.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Paula, the increasing emphasis on working from home, I just wondered, is there any sign of this spilling into the libraries? And if there is, are there any implications in the way we run libraries and manage it all?
Through you, Chair. I think, again, it's probably anecdotal, but we have noticed that there's been a massive uptake in the amount of Wi-Fi being used in the libraries. And now that we've made it unlimited Wi-Fi access rather than a time limit, then certainly we've got a lot of people who are using that free Wi-Fi on the premises. I think it comes down to, and it is highlighted a little bit in some of the preamble to the strategy, that the wiring, the facilities to be able to kind of use Wi-Fi to charge computers, to charge phones, is not as ideal as we would like it to be, and it's just the nature of the age of the building. So yeah, that would be.
I'm happy with the answer, Chair. All I would want to do is sort of highlight that aspect.
So we have some recommendations. Your Worship, were you wanting to make some changes there?
Well, through you, Chair, I think having heard other councillors' views, I think that we need to ask the staff really to come back, because where it says, I don't think we're satisfied with the B, strategy and policy adopts the library strategic plan 2021-26. So I think that understanding a different time frame for both Flagsmere and Hastings delivery.
So, through you, Chair, I think what we're saying is that the strategy is good. It's the timing currently in the strategy being asked to adopt in terms of waiting till year 5 for a significant development of the space.
Yes.
So if you're able to take it as an action, that a direction is for officers to explore. We've got the strategy to do the detailed concepts and design sooner, and bring that to council, which is simply a governance decision around priorities and funding.
Yes.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So are we happy with that?
Just take that as an action.
Take that as an action?
Yeah, take that as an action.
So I'd like a recommendation actually to that effect, because
Recommendation?
if we adopt the recommendations as they stand, then we are adopting this time frame.
Okay.
So I think that we do need to alter that recommendation B.
Yeah, we'll
thank you.
We'll amend recommendation B.
Through you, the Chair, if I may, while the recommendation is being written, I'd just like to acknowledge that the Friends of the Library have been extremely supportive, and they were expecting to be here today, but they were coming about 3 o'clock. We thought the agenda would take a bit longer, so they were supposed to be here, and I'm sure they will come at some stage, but yes, we're working very well with them.
Yep. So we're going to have a break after this. This recommendation is passed. We'll come back after the break because there's some PX. What's that? Yeah. 10 to 15 minute break. So just on a side note, the Wellington Library's been closed for I don't know how many years, but it's, you know, it's a huge blow for that community. Well, Napier, well, they've got a part-time, you know, they've got a part-time library over there, but Wellington, yeah. Alrighty.
All right, so we've got an amended B to...
Amended B.
So you're adopting the strategic plan, but you're directing me to report back to you before, and ideally before the commencement of the next annual plan, on timeframes for accelerating the delivery of the strategic plan, but particularly the investment in the Flaxmere and Hastings libraries.
Yes, happy with that. Happy to move those.
Can we move that, Councillor Sean?
Moved by Her Worship, happy to second.
We have mover and seconder. We have a mover and a seconder. I'll put the recommendations as presented. All those in favour, key my eye. Aye. Any against? Carried. Thank you. So after this break, we'll come back into PX. But just before we do that, you want to let us know why we're going into PX after the break? Craig?
Nice. Through you, Mr. Chair. The next item is recommended for PX. Council's just starting on the journey of commercial negotiations, and it's appropriate that those matters are public excluded at this stage so that the Chief Executive is free to pursue those negotiations.
All right, so that's the recommendation. Can I get a mover seconder for that? Councillor Watkins, seconded with Councillor Sholem. All those in favour, keep my eye. Any against? Carried. All right, break. And 10 to 15 minutes.
I think afternoon tea.
Yeah, afternoon tea. Yep.